So good morning, Rabbi,
Good morning, Joe.
and happy Passover.
Why, thank you. Chag Sameach. Happy Passover.
And right back at you. I look forward to the day when I can actually say that without stumbling over it. And to that end, I think I need to spend more time in temple. And that led to an interesting question. What is it about Judaism where you have that balance between being in the temple doing religious observances versus being in the home?
Certainly. Let me start with a quote, and I've used it before, from John Paul II. He referred to the Jewish people as our older brothers in the faith. I think that's a very powerful and significant statement because Moses was the teacher, his brother Aaron was the priest, and Judaism, as it developed, followed Moses, the teacher, rabbi, teacher. The church followed Aaron, the priest, hence the sacraments. And even within the Protestant denominations, there are certain items that are reserved for someone who's ordained. So let's go back to those two images. You have teacher and priest. And so Judaism followed the idea that the synagogue, Greek word meaning place of gathering, synagogus, where we gather. The church followed Aaron the priest and built a church, a structure, and then consecrated the structure as the place where things would take place. In Judaism, we have the synagogue, where we gather for joint celebrations. However, things then shift to the home because the home becomes a miniature sanctuary, a small place where things happen at home. While we go back to the church has consecrated sacred space where you go to observe and celebrate. Two different ways to do the same thing. It's how do I unite with God with my observances? Where do I hold the Passover Seder? Where do I hold Palm Sunday? Where do I hold my sunrise service? So we look at two different ways to accomplish the same thing. There are those out there that would want you to believe that one is better than the other. Don't listen to them. They are in it for their own ego. They have something they want to get across on you. Just two different ways to do the same thing. We joke about being left-handed or right-handed. Two different ways to do the same thing. How do you pick something up? And so to put it down one as opposed to the other serves no purpose. So let's go back to our two systems. So the church follows Aaron the priest and created sacred space that was consecrated.
I know there are services that are done at the temple that you have to do at temple, and you have to store the Torah in a certain way at the temple. And in Catholicism, at least, we would have a creche in our home and say prayers every night during Advent. And we do practices of fasting at Lent. So there's that overlap, isn't there?
Definitely, because we're just looking at ways to attain to the one, to do something sacred in our home and our lives. So yes, there are times when we want community worship. And then we come to the building and we have someone leading services. We come together to worship as a community.
That's a difference that I see. It's a day of obligation. You have to go to Mass once a week. And if you don't, it's a sin and you have to go to confession to apologize for it, if I'm remembering my catechism correctly. But there's no such mandate in Judaism, is there?
No. Now remember, the Roman Catholic Church has the 7 sacraments. And that's a different system, follows Aaron the priest. And our Protestant brothers and sisters, even though they don't call them sacraments, again, there still is something reserved for an individual who's ordained. And so whatever we want to label it, it has that equivalency of this is a requirement within our faith group. So if you want to join the Roman Catholic faith group, There are the sacraments. One of them is attending Mass. Again, this is a perfect example of two different ways to do the same thing. And it depends on how I see my spirituality, how I see my connection with the group. In Judaism, we encourage people to come together as a community to worship together. We all like to be together. We've found that out this past year. We like community. We want to be in the building with each other. However, Judaism doesn't view it as a requirement, just two different ways to attain spirituality, to attain connection with our faith.
Well, I know one thing for sure is that I connect a little bit better with my faith and with yours, or shall we say ours, whenever I have these conversations. So thank you very much, Rabbi.
You're very welcome, and I'll talk to you later.